Good evening, everyone. I welcome the gallery and the press to the council meeting and remind you that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to council's Facebook and YouTube pages. I would ask for everyone to please turn all mobile phones to silent mode, and please be aware that a hearing loop is available in the council chamber. Staff members are able to assist you with this at any time during the meeting. Please remain quiet in the gallery so that everyone can hear the meeting. Anyone disrupting the meeting may be asked to leave. I would also like to remind members of the public watching the live stream that a copy of the agenda and information explaining council meetings can be found on the council website. Tonight you will see that we have 8 reports in open council and 0 in closed council, a transparency rate of 100%. Reading of the prayer. Please stand as I call upon Pastor Uotha Rodrigo from Aspire Church to read the prayer.
Let's pray. Gracious God, we thank you for the good outcomes that have resulted as you have answered the prayers made at each council meeting. We pray that again tonight you would guide the decisions of the council in a way that will enhance the well-being and prosperity of the people who live here, as well as those who operate businesses within this municipality. Again, we pray for your blessing and good outcomes from tonight's meeting. We take a moment to remember our neighbour council, the Shire of Cardinia, those who have been affected during bushfires. Pray you would comfort them, your protection, your strength over the firefighters and those who have been affected. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor. Please remain standing as I call upon Miss Vincenza Nicotero, I'm so sorry, from the Casey Multi-Faith Network to read the faith statement.
The Casey Multi-Faith Network exists to promote peace, harmony and understanding, and to do so in partnership with Casey Council and the wider Casey community. We aim to spread knowledge and clarity about what different religions or worldviews believe, teach and practice. We believe that all members of religions and faiths have the right to peacefully practice and celebrate their own religion in a shared attitude of friendly coexistence and cooperation with all other peoples.
And thank you very much. Please be seated. The City of Casey acknowledges that we're on the traditional land of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and pays respects to all elders past and present. Apologies. We have Councillor Gillich, who has been granted leave of absence for tonight's meeting. We also have an apology from Councillor Rosario. Could I please ask for a mover and a seconder to accept the apologies of Councillor Rosario? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Aziz. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. Suspension of local law. Could I please ask for a mover and a seconder to move the suspension of local law until I determine to reapply it? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Ray and seconded by Councillor Cristani. Is there any dissent? If there's no dissent, that is carried. Councillor, there's 2 items that I'm aware of tonight, and the first one I'd like to defer to Councillor Aziz. We've got a wonderful young man in our gallery who has got his parents with him. He's from Alkira Secondary College, a very, very impressive young man, and 2 parents who must be immensely proud of him. So I'm going to hand over to the Ward Councillor, Councillor Aziz, to introduce and to say why this wonderful young man is here. And I'd also like to acknowledge his former teacher, but a wonderful teacher at that school, Miss Nicole Scott. Councillor Aziz.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, for this opportunity. Indeed, a wonderful young man, but from also a wonderful and a leading school, not just in the city of Casey, but indeed the entire region and probably the whole state. I've always had a soft spot for Aquila Secondary College because not only is it in my ward, but it's also a school that takes great pride in our history and our traditions. the recognition of international global events that have passed, such as the sacrifices that our soldiers have made in both world wars and in Vietnam and Korea, the recognition of the Holocaust and the victims of the Holocaust and the sensitivity with which they deal with commemorations of those events, and also their recognition of the great milestones that have made this wonderful nation of ours truly great, is inspiring. It's inspiring to see young people at various levels of their junior and senior education take these active steps to recognise Australia's past and celebrate opportunities for its future. So it's a great school, and it's no wonder that it's producing great students of the calibre of Kyle Lawrence. And it's an honour, Kyle, to have you here today, and particularly to recognise the great efforts you made in ensuring the organisation of the 10th anniversary of this wonderful school happens as smoothly as possible. I had the pleasure back then of representing Mayor Ablett, who was our Mayor of the Day at the time, at this anniversary celebration, and it ran like clockwork. Kyle ran tours of the school, as well as hosting a number of special guests during the event. The nomination of him tonight to get a mayoral commendation was arranged because Kyle acted as an event manager in 2018, which is well beyond the role of a school leader. He continues to exceed the expectations set of a school captain and demonstrates the college values of integrity, respect and care. But I just want to reveal one additional skill that I've only discovered about Kyle on the weekend. He's also an amazing interior decorator. I ran into him by accident at Bunnings on the weekend where he works, and I was in need of some wallpaper because my wife and I are undertaking some renovations at the moment. And not only did he recommend fantastic quality wallpaper, but it was the right colour from first go after my describing of the surroundings, to the extent that as soon as I walked out of Bunnings, I threw the receipt away because I knew that no refund would be necessary. And you turned out to be absolutely right. A fabulous young man who's so multi-talented, works wonders for his amazing school, but also works on the weekend to set an example to other young people of how to be productive and how to participate fully in society. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here today. You are a total credit to your parents, and we welcome you both. And we wish the school, Carol, all the very best for the future. And we can tell you with absolute certainty that the city of Casey will always be one of your greatest advocates and greatest champions as a school and as a body of student, teachers and parents. Thank you, Carl, and congratulations.
Cal, could I ask you to come up, please, so that Councillor Aziz can present you with the certificate? And I would like to say I actually attended that very special occasion as well, and it was beautifully organised and very, very meaningful. So well said, Councillor Aziz.
wallpaper? Or?
The right colour straight away. I mean, it was the most expensive one there.
Well, right. Well done.
Thank you very much once again. Very meaningful to have Cal's parents here as well. Really means a lot. The other item, councillors, is not as such a happy one, and it is in relation to the fires that we have witnessed over the weekend for our sister or our neighbouring council, Kidinia. And on behalf of the City of Casey, I'd like to convey our sincere concern and sadness for the destruction, distress and threat to life that our neighbouring communities have experienced due to the Bunyip fires. I would also like to acknowledge that there have been no loss of life, and I thank God for that. It could have been far greater had it been more densely populated and the evacuation procedures not been as good as what they were. Could have been a lot more devastating, but devastating it still is. And our hearts go out to all the people who have been evacuated, displaced or lost property in the fires. And I'd also like to extend our very best wishes to the Kidinia Shire Mayor, Councillor Graham Moore and his fellow councillors, and all on the Kidinia Shire Council who have been working tirelessly to help their residents and keep them safe. It is an absolute tragedy and a horror that none of us would like to be faced with. Some of us have grown up in country areas and have faced fires in the past, and it brings back a lot of memories for me. The City of Casey has provided a high level of support to those in need through our emergency response teams by providing a safe place for horses and one goat at Akuna Park, staffing the relief centres, sending out our water tanker, using our 19-seater community bus, as well as ongoing support to the Kidinia Shire Council where required. I'm incredibly proud of our efforts to quickly spring into action and help our neighbours in need, particularly Kidinia Shire Council. But I must also say that we've been helping Bulbul Shire Council as well, and they need it just as much as Kidinia, and I'm really proud of Council for extending that support. And we're always on hand to support our neighbouring municipality and are doing our utmost to ensure that we provide appropriate resources that are directed in the most helpful way. I extend my deepest thanks to all Casey staff who have been involved in the emergency efforts as well as the local community. You have gone over and above to ensure the safety of our fellow communities, and for that we here on Council thank you. Many council staff have also been affected by the bushfires. We are working closely with these staff to ensure their safety and support them through this challenging time. Naturally, in the true Aussie spirit, we have banded together and looked for opportunities to aid, and I applaud everyone's generosity. While the situation continues to unfold, currently the best kind of support is to donate to the Casey Kidinia Foundation Relief Fund that has been set up until we know precisely what the affected communities need. You can do that by looking at either the Casey Kidinia Foundation or going onto the City of Casey Facebook page. We will keep the Casey community informed with updates over the coming days because we're still not out of the woods. Last but not least, we thank and acknowledge the huge efforts of our emergency services personnel and especially the CFA. I don't use the word hero very often, but they truly are heroes. They have fought valiantly in challenging circumstances, risking their own lives for others. They are selfless, brave, and have worked day and night to do their very best, protecting lives and minimising potential and real property damage and loss. On behalf of Council, we thank you for the fantastic job that you do in protecting the community 24 hours, 7 days a week. And once again, thank you to the Casey community for the spirit of generosity and goodwill which never fails to surface during these times. As Mayor, it makes me very proud to be Mayor of this wonderful city and this wonderful council. And I now open up to my fellow councillors if they'd like to say a few brief words in relation to this. But I would like to add again, Casey is a very compassionate council and we are so proud to be able to offer our hand of friendship to Kidinia Shire and Bulbul where needed. Councillor Saray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to echo your sentiment and obviously send my prayers to all the families who have been affected by this and the community of Kidinia. I would like to add that we as councillors would love to hear back from any other community organisations that are doing drives or whatever it might be, just so we are aware and we can share it on our Facebook. And if you don't tell us, we won't know. So it's very, very important that you keep all of us in the loop, so we make sure that we can assist and promote and all those types of things. And at the moment we are, looking at donating to the Casey Cardinia Foundation. So the only organisation that I've seen on Facebook is Back to Basics Melbourne, and they're actually based in Narre Warren, and they've actually been collecting food and non-perishable foods and drinks and that type of thing to make hampers and that type of thing right now. And at the moment they're asking for more like deodorants and toothbrushes and toothpastes and that type of thing. Yesterday they were asking for muesli bars and chips and Gatorades for the CFA and all that type of thing. So we're really, want to support as much as we can. But please, any organisation that is looking at doing these things, please let us know so we can pass on the information, because we have a huge network as council. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saray. And look, we do have a generous community. Could I just say at this point, Cardinia Shire don't know what they need. They actually don't know how they can manage logistically all the really physical stuff. So what they're really asking for at this point is a donation to the Casey Cardinia Foundation. But certainly if there's other organisations feeling they want to express that in a different way, please just be aware that Cardinia have no capacity to be able to logistically manage that at this stage. But thank you so much, Councillor Saray. Councillor Cristani.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to support yourself and Councillor Saray, and in fact the whole council has gotten behind Cardinia in this hour of need. My heart goes out to them. I've been praying for days, and as many of us have been watching with close eyes, just see what this fire is going to do. And of course it's widespread across the state in different areas. So I'm grateful to our staff who really who have just jumped to the need, and I think that's a real credit to our CEO and our staff and yourself, who have been a real leader in this whole situation. And yeah, look, if there's anything more we can do to support our fellow neighbouring council, I'm sure each of us are there waiting to help. So thank you very much, and God bless you all, and I really do hope that you're safe, and we'll continue to pray that there will be no loss of life and that damage to property will be limited as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cristani. Councillor Ablett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just rise to support what's been said, and also say that 10 years ago I was involved in getting cattle off a farm when the bushfire came through, and we only just got the cattle off, and we ran them up the road into a big paddock, and the fire came through, and then we looked back and 10 minutes where we were before was completely gone. And we went back, and the thing was, I noticed, was all the trees over the road, and I know that's a real problem for firefighters and residents. And I guess the message here is, luckily no lives were lost. Things can be rebuilt. However, always we can improve, and I know, Madam Mayor, you instigated some conversations before that we will follow up in the future, because we can always get better. That's the way Kevin Schutte once said, if you don't think you can improve at something, give it away. So we can always get better at prevention and making things easier for firefighters and residents, particularly in an area that's becoming more populated by people. I think we do need to do something. This is the second time it's happened in 10 years. And support residents and make them feel safer, and do things better than what they are at the moment. I know the firefighters, I take my hat off to them. They are heroes, as you alluded to. They give up all their time with training, and they go out there 24/7 and they protect the community. So they're at the forefront of everyone's safety. I want to congratulate them and thank the City of Casey councillors, officers. And I know they put a heck of a lot of time in there. I wasn't up there this time because the fire didn't get to the farms that I was involved in. But nonetheless, it is, if you've been in a fire and you hold your hands out and the fire's 2 k's away and it's burning the back of your hands and the back of your neck, and you can't breathe because you're dead before the fire gets there, if you've ever been involved in one. And I'm just fortunate, we're very fortunate that no lives were lost, but I do think we need to sit down and think and look at that whole area, as Councillor Rowe pointed out very well. Can we do things better in that region? And I'm sure we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ablett. Anybody else? Anyone else at this stage? I just know that behind the scenes the councillors have been so concerned about this, and that's why we will be moving a late report later on this evening as our expression of supporting Cardinia Shire Council. So, councillors, on that note, are there any other items of suspension of local laws? Any other items to raise? That being the case, I now determine the local law reapplied. Confirmation of minutes. Is there a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday, the 19th of February 2019? Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Flannery. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest or personal interest that they wish to declare? Interest must also be declared immediately before consideration of the item. There being no conflict of interest, we'll move on to public question time. Each question will be read out and then an answer given. There is a limit of 2 questions per person. Members of the public are not permitted to comment. However, members of the public can contact council staff during office hours to discuss any issues that they might have. Mr Cresta, are there any questions tonight?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there are 3 questions for this evening. The first question is from Mr Errol Pereira. The question reads, through you, Madam Mayor, questioners no longer need to be present in the gallery. After the state government subsidy is deducted, the pensioner is able to pay off the balance in instalments in relation to solar panels. Cardinia and Knox councils have signed up. Casey hasn't. Why? This question will be answered by the Acting Manager City Planning, Kerry New.
Thank you. The Solar Saver program supports eligible pensioners to install solar systems through a 50% rebate of up to $2,250. Currently, 25 of the 79 Victorian councils are participating in the program, with 354 households taking part. The program works by councils funding the initial cost of installation, and these costs are then recovered through a special rates charge over 10 years. The program supports an average of 14 homes within each council area. Casey council officers have previously investigated similar opportunities for a special rates charge to support the installation of energy and water saving products, including solar systems. This was not progressed due to the identified financial risk to council, and noting that interest rates are low and individuals are able to seek alternative sources to fund installation of energy efficient products. Casey has one of the highest uptakes of solar in the state. This is reflected in recent statistics provided by the Australian PV Institute, indicating that 22,294 of Casey's 106,000 dwellings have solar. This is equivalent to 1 in 5 properties, or over 20% of dwellings in Casey. Thank you.
There have been a further 2 questions received for tonight from Brendan Brown. His first question is, what is the council's policy regarding loyalty reward schemes for travel and fuel purchases, such as frequent flyer points? And is it possible for councillors to personally gain from such loyalty reward schemes when travelling or purchasing fuel at council expense? This question will be answered by myself. When making corporate travel arrangements, council does not accrue loyalty or frequent flyer points. Councillors receive reimbursement for car travel in accordance with the Councillors Support and Reimbursement Policy, which does not consider or prohibit use of loyalty points. Mr Brown's second question reads, according to the Register of Overseas or Interstate Travel, dated 4th December 2018, in April 2018, 2 councillors travelled to China for the same purpose. The confirmed cost for one councillor was $4,672.30, and for the other councillor was $1,988. What is the reason for the $2,684.30 difference in costs? Again, this question will be answered by myself. Each cost reflects the respective flight costs, which vary due to flight type and travel dates. There are no further questions.
Thank you, Mr Cresta. We'll now move on to officers' reports. Are there any items councillors wish to discuss this evening? And I'll first go to Councillor Smith.
2, 5 and 6.
I've already got Councillor Saray withdrawing item 8.6, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Councillor Smith, item 8.2 and 8.5. Councillor Smith. Okay, Councillor Rowe.
Item 8.3. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Fantastic. Councillor Aziz.
8.4, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Saray. 8.6? Fantastic. And I'll be withdrawing a late report, item 8.8 for the Bunyip fire, complex fire. Okay, so could I have a mover and seconder to accept the following reports to be moved in block, that means without discussion, with the said recommendation, items 8.1 and 8.7, moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Cristani. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. We'll move straight into the officers' reports. And I'll call on Councillor Smith to introduce for item 8.2, Bunjil Place Precinct Advisory Committee.
I'll be moving the motion, the recommendation, page 14.
And seconded by myself.
Simply pulled it out for an opportunity for Miss McMahon to shine, as usual. No such thing as a free dinner. If you've read the minutes, councillors, you'll know that, particularly looking at the list of people who attend this meeting, it is a room full of very experienced people, and then Councillor Stapleton and I were there on top of it, I suppose. It really is a pleasure to be in the room with these experts, and they bring a whole different perspective to Bunjil Place as users, and some of them as not users, who don't use the facility, but who bring that expert opinion to it. You'll note that we were addressed, we talked about the marketing, place marketing strategy, and councillors will know full well that one of my big issues in the last few months is about signage, the use of the screens and Bunjil Place. And Ms McMahon, I believe there's some good news.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we do have some great news. We will be providing some enhancements to the outward-facing internal screens over the next month, and that will give us greater movement and control where we can display our programs and our information, and also increase wayfinding, which I'm sure the visitors will be glad that we'll be doing that in the next month.
Great. Fantastic.
And a what's on sign?
Absolutely.
That's even more important, I think.
There'll
well
be
done.
a what's on sign.
You're a good team, you two.
Well done. No, and I thank Ms McMahon for taking that up, and it was, pardon me, a battle that we shouldn't have had, but we had anyway, we had to have, and there's been a good change in that. Just to remind councillors, one of the issues I had was talking to some of the users and producers of events in Bunjil Place who thought, until I pointed out to them, that when they hired the venue, they hired the screens, and the screens would advertise their event, and that was not the case. You might recall at the council meeting one night, an officer actually said, if they stand long enough, they will see their show promoted. But they had to stand and watch 10 other shows being promoted first. And I believe that this will be addressed now, so that when someone hires a theatre for an event, it's their event that will end up on the screen during the time they're in the building, which is fair enough. And also, what's on in Bunjil. If you walk in Bunjil now, you don't know what's on. You don't know what's in the theatre, what's in the studio, what's outside, etc. Apart from what's outside, you can't miss that. So, a good move. Can I just talk, Ms McMahon might want to interrupt, but first of all, we've got a new exhibition opening on the 9th of this month, the Vera Mola exhibition, and it's about landscapes to do with Western Port Bay, I think, and sculptures, so looking forward to that. International Women's Day, Kitty Flanagan's here on Friday night. It's sold out very quickly, and we've even put a second show on sale for later on. And those people, after a little bit of culture, not culture with a K, council as is, Cinderella, Victoria Ballet is coming with Cinderella in about 2 weeks, I think. So I think there'll be a lot of people looking forward to that. So looking forward, and of course, Madam Mayor, I think you're going. Leo Sayer in a couple of weeks is going to bring back a few memories, or not a couple of weeks, in about a month. Leo Sayer is going to come back. Councillor Flanagan, you'll be there with your hair frizzed up in memory of your childhood.
I won't let the show go on.
Yep, no. Okay, thank you. Ms McMahon, did I miss anything? No, you sure? Okay, thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Smith. Ms McMahon, you do an amazing job, and we really do appreciate what you and your team do. You make, I said this today when we had a mini tour around Bunjil, you actually make Bunjil sing. And Councillor Smith, you're always looking for new ways of doing things, better ways of improving and putting your ideas forward, and for that we thank you as well. I did attend this advisory committee, and I was blown away by who was on the committee and what was being discussed and how things were progressing. We did a whole review of the year, and it was just so impressive to see how far things have come. I think beyond our expectations. And for that, if you could take back to your team how proud we are. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And thank you, Councillor Smith. Are there any questions? Is there any dissent? That being the case, that is carried. We'll move on to Councillor Rowe, Advanced Waste Processing, Smart City Solution.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the recommendation in my name.
Moved by Councillor Rowe and seconded by Councillor Aziz. Please introduce Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is an update of works that started at the request of Council back in 2017 and was at a meeting in December 2017 authorised the continuation of our membership of the Metropolitan Waste and Resource Recovery Group, of which, Madam Mayor, I think you're our head ambassador.
My favourite committee.
And it's a worthwhile one. Madam Mayor, we all know from what we hear and we see constantly that we have recycling plants shut down or catch fire and you know, we're running out of holes in the ground. You can only dig so many holes, and not only are we running out of holes in the ground, but we're running out of what can be used as airspace. And the Hallam Road tip is an indication of an airspace tip. But even Hallam is going to be full to capacity in 7 to 10 years. And the Council has decided that through the Waste Recovery Group that we need to be smarter in it. In line with us being the smartest city in Victoria and in Australia's most livable city, we decided to move in the direction of alternate waste recycling. And the need for that came about, of course, because of declining landfill airspace, the increasing population, and with the increasing population, the increasing the production of waste from family homes and businesses, which causes you know, a great cost upon the community. And with the estimated growth to 7.5 million people in the metropolitan region by 2046, it's getting to the stage where we just can't wait anymore. Something has to be done.
Absolutely.
The other thing, Madam Mayor, is the increasing costs that are imposed on residents. And one of those costs is in fact the state government imposed landfill charge. And that has risen dramatically since 1998 under the previous Kennett government, at which time it was $18 per tonne, to today, where we see an amount of $120 per tonne. That's one of the charges that the state government didn't put a cap on. They put a cap on rates, but not on a fund that goes in government coffers, and which we don't necessarily see the fair amount that we collect. But that is an unbelievable increase over that period of time. And every household in the city of Casey pays that fee. And obviously we need to do something about it. And of course we have the poor environmental outcomes that come from having to have produced, I can never say that word, protrusible, was it?
Protrusible.
Yeah, that's it.
Just got to get your R's right.
I'll have to go back to the dentist and get my teeth pushed back in. But you know, producible waste and the production of methane gas, as we've seen here previously, has been an issue. And we really do need to be smarter about what we do. And through the Metropolitan Waste and Resource Recovery Group, we've been part of a inquiry into waste and alternatives. And this motion is all about adopting a motion to proceed with continuing to be a member with Metropolitan Waste and Recovery Group and be part of stage 2 of the report. And certainly when you go through the report, you see that the preferred avoidance is a total avoidance of waste. Reuse is obviously a good one. Recycling, it sometimes works. And the next one is recovery of energy. And recovery of energy is the state of the art at the moment, where you utilise the waste that you have, destroy it at high temperatures, but out of those high temperatures you produce energy. And what did we see a few weeks back? We saw 30,000 houses in the southeast cut off the power grid. Why? We didn't have a power station to generate the base load that was needed to carry the air conditioning and run businesses and refrigerators and the like. So this type of innovation does two things. It destroys the waste in an environmentally friendly way, and two, it gives an opportunity to use the heat created to produce energy for the community. So these are the types of things that this group are looking at, and these are the types of things that the City Casey wishes to see adopted in our push to be the smartest city in Australia and the most livable city. So, Madam Mayor, I will stop at that. I had plenty more to say, but I have two colleagues, Councillor Aziz and Councillor Jackson, who are both involved in smart cities with me, who also wish to make a contribution. So I'll pass over to one of them to continue the good work.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Aziz, did you have a question? Or did you want to speak to as the seconder?
I'd like to ask your indulgence to extend to me the courtesy to speak, if you may, Madam Mayor, because I'm sure there's no dissent against such great policy.
That's right.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, for that opportunity, and I thank my colleague for that formidable introduction, but also I thank our officers headed by Jansen for the amazing work they have done over the last 2 years to deliver us to this point. I don't think I'm overstating it by saying that this is actually a colossal shift for the City of Casey, a colossal shift in policy, very much integrated and born out of our quest to become a smart city, but also a sustainable city that is capable of managing its waste, not only in an environmentally friendly manner, but as Councillor Roy has very cleverly articulated, in a manner that delivers further productivity to industry and further enhancements to the environment.
Innovative as well.
And it's an innovation of the first class. And one of the problems that I have with the recommendation, as solid as it is that it doesn't give us an opportunity to actually broadcast to the rest of Australia and indeed the world what we're actually doing in this regard. And I'm wondering, given that the motion has been moved and seconded now, whether you would consider, Madam Mayor, an addendum, a part 5, that says that the Mayor issues a media release to highlight the innovations that the City of Casey is undertaking to deliver a more innovative and more responsible waste management strategy for the future as part of its overall smart city direction.
Councillor Aziz, would you indulge the inclusion, and correct me if I'm off centre here, Mr Jansen, that we say that's in concert with a collective group that we had come to present just recently?
Yeah, sure, we can do that. I mean, I'm sure that as we go along, there'll be many more consultants along the way. What I really want to highlight through this addendum is the fact that we're taking the initiative as a council by passing this motion tonight. And I very much want to underscore.
Councillor Aziz, I think just leave it as it is. Could you check the wording for what's up there and make sure you're happy with it?
just in direction with a Smart Cities initiative, or after the word waste management, or as a further step towards becoming a smart city, perhaps would be a better wording.
Fantastic.
So after the word management, just put a comma there and say as a further step towards becoming a smart city.
Thank you.
So Councillor Rowe has given a very eloquent introduction. I
need to ask for a leave of council, sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
Leave of council for that to be accepted. Thank you very much. Continue. Thanks, Councillor.
I don't really wish to speak anymore because it's all also in the report, except to conclude by saying that the officers have done a sterling job in delivering us to this point. I wish you every success in continuing. I think you are going to make an enormous contribution to the future of the City of Casey through this work, and an enormous impact on future generations. So this is exactly what the City of Casey has been known for, innovating, and this is yet further evidence that we're moving in the right track. And along with my colleague Councillor Rowe and my colleague Councillor Jackson, who all hold the portfolio of smart cities, we commend the motion to the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aziz. Are there any other questions, or is there any dissent? Sorry, Councillor Flannery, question? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just like to ask Mr Jansen a question. With the federal government, would they be looking at, seeing we've closed down, or we're closing down the power stations down at your lawn, if we could use one of those as a test for combustion burning rather than, you know, giving up the coal? We give up coal so we could do combustion burning and do the testing down there before we bring it into maybe in the City of Casey.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Mr Jansen.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Waste to energy will won't have the capacity to totally replace coal. It's first and foremost a way of dealing with the waste. There is a benefit to be had out of the energy component, but it won't replace totally an alternative an alternative energy source. There are already companies out there looking at waste to energy to power, as an example, the Australian paper mill, which is the state's biggest natural gas user, and to replace that natural gas use with waste as the energy source. So yes, indeed, those things are being looked at, and I believe that Federal has put some money towards that project.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? Just before I finish up on that item, I'd just like to congratulate Mr Jansen and his team once again. You do an amazing job. You don't make a song and dance about it. You just go about doing the job and doing it very well. Could you please convey our best wishes to your team and to thank them for all their work, and for yourself, Mr Jansen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you. I think that's really well deserved. So, councillors, on that note, if there's no dissent, I consider that carried, and we'll move on to the next item. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Rowe. Item 8.4, Webb Street Trader Interaction. Councillor Aziz.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move this motion or this recommendation in my name.
Moved by Councillor Aziz and seconded by Councillor Flannery. Please introduce Councillor Aziz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, again, another exciting development for the City of Casey. Webb Street is only one of 10 recognised major precincts in the state of Victoria under state statutes. And we've recently adopted a master plan for that entire precinct, which will indeed deliver it to the 21st century. And it will deliver it to the 21st century not just in terms of improving the retail opportunities that exist in the precinct already, but also look at housing options as well under our housing strategy, and looking at opportunities for vertical expansion as well as horizontal expansion. Regrettably, in an already heated market, this has had a tremendous impact on the value of real estate around the Webb Street area. because people are buying now blocks of land with single dwellings on it in the hope of constructing apartments in the future. And what used to sell for around $300,000 only 5 or 6 years ago is now attracting close to $1 million, which is a very interesting development indeed. But that's what happens when you're looking at a precinct of that nature and looking at giving it life and a future beyond its current state. And its current state, no doubt, Madam Mayor, has been in demise for a number of years until the City of Casey has come along and decided that this is unacceptable and that we will change the future, because we are deadly serious about creating jobs in Casey and creating opportunities for affordable housing as well that come with those jobs. The missing piece of the puzzle, and it's not a council responsibility, is the parlour state of the Narre train station and the totally unacceptable and inadequate parking opportunities around that station. We've advocated previously to both major parties and to the current state government to have that station recognised as a premium station, to renovate it and then to add multi-level car parking to improve the parking situation. But we've had no response. And it concerns me because Casey continues to grow and more people every day use Narre train station as a way to commute either to their workplace or their study place. So as part of this work, and as part of, as much as I recognise the magnificence that's now been achieved in consultation with the traders, I think it is absolutely imperative for this council to continue advocating for an improvement of the Narre train station, and for us to look at the opportunities articulated in the report to improve trade outcomes for the many small businesses that work around Webb Street, but also hopefully further look at connectivity opportunities between the Webb Street area and the Fountain Gate precinct, both in terms of transport and in terms of pedestrian traffic. It's an excellent report. I commend your officers on it, and I commend the consultation that you have taken with the traders to reach this point. And I implore you to keep going and to continue developing this most important precinct so that it's a magnet for jobs, and it's also a thriving precinct that our residents can enjoy every day and on weekends, no matter where they come from in the City of Casey. Madam Mayor, again, I commend the recommendation to the Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillors, and could I commend you and Councillor Flannery for the great work you, more historically, of course, Councillor Aziz, but more recently, Councillor Flannery, in pursuing that, and to our wonderful council officers for the work that that you all do and have done in making this become a reality. Councillors, are there any questions or is there any dissent? That there being no dissent, that is carried. Thanks, Councillor Aziz. Moving on to item 8.5, Multicultural Officer, Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, I'll move the recommendation in the first instance, but I may add to it. We'll just see with council.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Aziz.
I'll second it with a caveat as to what those additions may be.
You'll be right. Just trust me.
With a question mark. Okay, so moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Aziz. Councillor Smith, would you like to introduce?
A couple of questions to start with. I understand, the need to not just move on this straight away. We're going to develop an internal multicultural policy and a coal-specific action plan, but there's no date on that. When, or have I missed something? Do we know when that's likely to be finished by, and we'll know about it?
Ms. Sahi.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we haven't actually fixed a date, but we can certainly do that when we look at our resourcing. As you'd be aware, we have a number of plans that went to council in June last year that we are in the process of delivering on, so we need to ensure that this aligns with those other plans.
Thank you. Can I expect it, in 2 months? No, 3? I'm open to you suggesting when it might be. 6 months? Is it before the end of the year?
Realistically, I'd suggest by the end of the year.
Okay. Madam Mayor, the reason I've brought it out, it was my motion to start with. in talking to some representatives of the multicultural community who say to me it'd be really good if they wanted to run an event or they wanted to find out a question that in other municipalities, and I don't know whether it's true, I mean it's anecdotal, that they can ring a council dedicated multicultural officer who'll be able to give them information about funding for grants, funding for events, that sort of thing. And I don't know whether that's true or not. They're saying, Casey, you can't do that. That it's unclear who you would ring and talk to. But what's your experience on that? What's your take on that? If I was a new group, say, wanted to run an event in the City of Casey, how would they do it?
Sure. So through you, Madam Mayor. Here at Casey, so in preparing this report, we actually spoke to a number of councils around the way that they did their work, and everyone clearly is organised in different ways. So here at the City of Casey, we do have grants officers who are not the same as the multicultural officers that we have. So in fact, it is a separate process, which means that anyone who's looking for a grant can know who to call and can speak to them, and I certainly know that the officers involved have been working closely with the multicultural officers around joining those two together. In terms of other queries and things, then yes, we do have multicultural officers that again sit in different areas of council. So depending on what their query is will depend on who they're put through to. Part of the plan and some work that we've started on already is around looking at our internet site rather than our intranet, and looking at how we can put up events more easily and how the community can actually do that directly. So that's one of the things that we're working on currently.
I'm happy to accept that, because I don't know any better, so I'll accept that, and that I look forward to the report coming out at the end of the year. One thing I did raise, and I can't remember whether it was at the council meeting or it might have been at the forum, the idea of, the figures in here indicate that we are a very multicultural community and the cold numbers are just enormous. Is there an opportunity, do you believe, and you might remember if I asked this, I think I did, I might be dreaming, that Multicultural Victoria, is there an opportunity to get them to have someone sitting in our building as a resource that obviously is not going to be paid by us, but advantageous for us?
So through you again, Madam Mayor, we certainly took note of that, and as part of the development of the plan, we will consider all of those things and build them into a plan that
So my
matches.
question to you then is, would I be wise to add that as a point two, just to make sure that's going to happen, or can I take your word? No, I wouldn't want to put you on the spot, but would it be wise to formalise it, do you think?
If you'd like to formalise it, then you can. It certainly is something that we will consider.
Yeah. So maybe, Madam Mayor, I'll have a point two.
Yep.
Councillor Aziz can help me because he's going to back me, I'm sure, on this. That officers consider or investigate with Multicultural Victoria or other similar organisation See, I'm getting confused because I can't see what I've said, so I've lost track.
Just wait a minute, wait till they press enter, and then it adds. Yep. So there we go. So we can add as we go along now.
So,
investigate multicultural similar organisations.
On the possibility of their offices being situated or co-located with the City of Casey. I won't specify that it has to be at Bunjil, it might be somewhere else, but
and just before I asked for leave of absence, Councillor Ziz had a suggestion, or were you...
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, I think if we can change the wording of that second recommendation, I'll certainly support it. Sure. But I think in terms of accuracy, it should be changed to the Victorian Multicultural Commission, rather than Multicultural Victoria.
Sure.
And remove the word similar organisation, because there is actually a specific organisation. And what we should be saying on the possibility of one of their commissioners being located
within the City of Casey Council. We want to say council, not just City of Casey. We don't want to find out they've moved to, Doveton, or we want them in the City of Casey.
Co-located within Bunjil Place.
Right.
Let's make it specific if that's our aspiration.
Fantastic.
Because that's the model they now have, isn't it? They deploy the commissioners all over Victoria, don't they? Through you, Madam Mayor, that's a question.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we'll have to take that on notice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look, I used to be a multicultural commissioner for about 5 years, and we
don't
have.
want one then.
Hey? You wouldn't have gotten me anyway. I
thought you had you at hello.
Said no. No. Just in all seriousness, there was a very centralised model back then, but then I think more recently the model has changed where the commissioners are actually out in regional parts and metropolitan parts of Victoria working directly with the communities. And I think our basis for the argument is that we are Victoria's largest city by population, so if they don't have a commissioner here, where else would they have one? It really is that simple. So I'm hoping Councillor Smith would agree with that specificity, but I do believe that that's the right path to go with, because then it doesn't leave it wishy-washy. Anything that goes into Multicultural Victoria, which is actually very different from the Victorian Multicultural Commission, that's the departmental organisation, whereas the Commission sits for its own statute or its own law.
And it reads perfectly, Councillor Aziz. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I've got a question. Councillor Aziz can answer it. Multicultural commissioner is not a full-time employee. They are
voluntary.
They're voluntary. Are they part-time, full-time?
No, during my time they were paid positions, but I don't know what's changed in terms of their salary structure or their commitments, but I reckon even if they are part-time, just the status of having a commissioner here is good enough.
Yep.
So could I suggest we put commissioners/officers?
Well, can I suggest we ask for both, and we might get one, but we might get both.
Hedge your bets.
Because my belief is that a commissioner would be fantastic to have here, but probably in terms of the residents being able to contact someone, they're probably more likely to get an officer of the multicultural
I'd say
commissioner
commissioner/officer.
Yep.
That way we can. Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Aziz?
Sort of.
Yep.
Look, I'm just trying to be very specific because I'm very cognizant of the politics of how this plays.
Yep.
So perhaps commissioner is one thing, right? They're recognised under an act and they have a certain status. But I'm just wondering if we'd consider the use of their commissioners and any additional support staff.
Lovely.
That's a better way.
As opposed to /officer, because then that gives you an opportunity of taking the 2 bites that Councillor Smith hopes to take.
Yep, I think that's great. Are we okay to include that? Thank you. All done. So we'll just commission and any additional support staff. Councillors, do I have leave of council to accept those changes, or Councillor Aziz, did you have something to ask that's in relation to this wording?
Councillor Ablett.
Sorry. Councillor Ablett, I beg your pardon. In relation to the wording? No. Okay. Could I have leave of council to accept this wording?
Did you call him Aziz?
Yeah, you did.
So sorry. Sorry.
That's a compliment to him and an insult to me. Anyway, no.
Do I have leave of council to accept this wording? Yes. I do. Thank you very much. Now, Councillor Ablett.
Just a question, Madam Mayor. I'm picking up getting, and I know this will probably come out in the report at the end of the year, I'm wondering what the benefit, we've spoken about the Multicultural Commission being here, and we had this discussion at another council meeting and asking for people to be here. We already have a community grants program that gives money out to lots of multicultural groups. So where's the difference lie here? Because if we attract staff from the Multicultural Commission or their staff, what benefit will they have if they don't bring some money with them? If we've already got a budget, which is up to $3,000 for community groups to apply for, because I've sat on that, not allowed to say much, but many multicultural groups apply for that money. So what is the benefit of having extra people if we can't expand the program?
So the question's to...
Well, maybe Councillor Smith or the officers, whoever likes to...
Councillor Smith.
No, Councillor.
I'm struggling to see the benefit without extra dollars.
Yeah. Having sat on some of those committees as well, one of the issues I've observed with some of the multicultural and ethnic groups applying is there is a bit of a misunderstanding about filling out the forms and applying for the right things. I believe if we had an officer dedicated, not just in grants, I think it's really important to acknowledge we have got grants officers, but someone who has a specialty and a close link to the communities that could maybe provide some more support. So it may not necessarily require more money, although that would be ideal. It's about a more clever way of getting them to apply and filling in and being more successful.
If I could ask a question just on the back of what Councillor Ablett has asked, wouldn't this be a potential role for the Access and Inclusion Committee? The Metro Access worker. That's to say.
So through you, Madam Mayor, we already have a number of positions in council that have multicultural in their title. So an example is in the Inclusion and Wellbeing Unit, we have a staff member who is the multicultural officer. So she works alongside the Access and Inclusion worker that you were talking about with Metro Access. And so what we put forward in our paper was that we need to look at how we organise and coordinate the work that happens, because we're very aware that it is done really in silos, and so each of the people with that in that portfolio are out there working with the community, but it's not done necessarily in a coordinated way between the different groups that are the different parts of council that are doing it. So at this stage we do have resources, it's just that we're not necessarily using them as effectively as we could from a community perspective.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Aziz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I just want to add a couple of comments, and I'm saying this meaning no disrespect to anyone that's participated in this debate, but I think there's a degree of conceptual confusion about what council actually does and what this can potentially bring to the city of Casey, and that is that, as the officers have recognised and as you have recognised, Councillor Ablett, we already have a grants program, and we already have an access and equity officer, and we already do a lot of things in that space. This raises it to another level altogether. The Commission in its own right has, I think, between $20 to $25 million worth of grants outside of anything that we do in the city of Casey. Well, that's getting to what I was asking.
Yes. Councillor Aziz, sorry, Councillor Ablett. Yeah, through the chair.
I'm hoping I'm partly answering your query, but I'm also hoping to add further to say that having a commissioner here also brings political clout to the whole process, because those commissioners actually have the ear of the Premier, and they have the ear of ministers, and they're listened to, and they participate in forums beyond the reach of the city of Casey, where certain conversations can be had that would then be very beneficial to the city of Casey. And so what we're doing is upping the ante and trying to play in a brand new league that extends what we're doing rather than basically duplicates what we're doing. And I think it's a great thing to do because, as I say, we need to continue playing to our strength of being the largest city in Victoria. And I don't know how much our funding program is for multicultural communities. It's probably, what, 250, $500,000?
Through Madam Mayor, I think at the forum I presented a slide. It's around about the 240,000 in terms of grants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, imagine having access to 25 million as well as the 240. Imagine having the opportunity to raise certain access and equity issues directly through a commissioner to a minister or a premier. You know, that's the added level of enhancement that this has, and so it would be a hell of a lot better than just having our own multicultural officer, because that would not value add, in my view, to what we're already doing, and I think your report recognised that and your briefing recognised that. So I guess that's the difference. I hope I've made it clearer, Councillor Ablett. I'm just trying to explain from my own experience, you know, the value add that this creates for Casey.
Thank you, Councillor Aziz. And as important as this is, councillors, we need to stick to are you aware questions, if you don't mind. So, Councillor Ablett, thank you.
Are you aware that does answer my question, because up until this part of the discussion that hadn't been mentioned. The dollar, I just thought more people with less resources dollar-wise, where, you know, in the think tank, how can we do it? And that's answered that. I mean, you're talking big league stuff, $25 million. So supporting this anyway. But I'm glad I asked the question, and I'm glad you explained that. So I think we all got a bit clearer picture of the potential of, and you're right, getting people here involved with our staff and having connection politically couldn't be anything but beneficial for the City of Casey. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Ablett. Yes, I think it does carry a lot of weight, and it really has informed us of what the benefits could be. Councillor Cristani, question or dissent? Dissent. Would you like to speak to that dissent?
Yes, but does the seconder want to speak?
I think the seconder has.
No, but I just want to say that I would, even though I've spoken, I would hold my right to further debate.
Who's running this meeting?
In anticipation of your dissent, my dear friend.
That was a question before, was it, Councillor Aziz? Thank you. Councillor Cristani, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I dissent on the grounds of, I think one of the largest issues here is that we're dabbling in issues of employment, which is in the jurisdiction of the CEO. By dabbling in here and dictating, perhaps that's a strong word, perhaps directing the CEO to form a multicultural office role.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, what's your point of order, Councillor Aziz?
You knew it was coming.
Right.
I raise a point of order on the basis of error of fact. The CEO would have absolutely no power over this commissioner. We would simply be offering...
Point of order. It was in relation to the Commissioner.
That's not, you can't have 2 points of order, but we can get your response in a moment.
So I'm just looking at it. The officers investigate with the Victoria Multicultural Commission the possibility...
Councillor Aziz, can I make things easier for you? I think what Councillor Cristani was saying is that we, the council, are directing officers, which I don't have to agree with, but that is what she's saying. So perhaps, did you want to respond to that?
We always frame language in motions in that way, that officers investigate and report. If it makes Councillor Cristani happy, even though I think it's nothing more than basically verbal gymnastics, if it makes her happy for us to say that officers direct the CEO to investigate, then he can delegate. I'm more than happy with that amendment as well. But I think opposing it on the basis that we're directing the CEO is indeed an error of fact. You know, and also it is very important to underscore that if anyone is located here, they'd be working to the chairman of the Multicultural Commission, or chairwoman in this instance, and whatever the departmental officers are, that have nothing to do with our CEO, and it's just an added layer of enhancement to how we conduct multicultural policy in the city.
Thank you, Councillor Aziz. Councillor Cristani, could I just clarify, was that your intent when you
no.
When you were saying that we were directing?
Madam Mayor, I was basing it on the report itself, which is requesting to have a multicultural officer formed. The next
Can you direct me to that wording, please?
It was, the report actually addressed it on the original motion itself.
Oh, okay.
And of course, the next steps deal with forming the multicultural policy internally. And that's where I also have an issue. And then there's a third issue, which is in relation to actually appointing...
Councillor Cristani, before you get into debate, I need to rule on this. I actually don't believe that was the intention of the councillors, to direct staff... what was it, sorry? No. Okay. No, I don't believe that at all. So I'm actually going to rule in Councillor Aziz's favour. I take your point and I respect your views. It certainly isn't reflected in what's in front of us. So I think any wording, it may have been just unfortunate.
Okay, Madam Mayor. In future, I may ask the CEO to form a Christmas officer because I want to promote Christmas. However, I want to move on with my dissent, and that is that I have concerns about appointing a multicultural commissioner here. We could have undue influence on council-elected policy. I'm not doubting the good heart and intention of both Councillor Aziz and Councillor Smith, but I dissent on multiple grounds, including the really divisive nature that multiculturalism can have. Not multi-ethnicity, which I'm all for, but there is a lot of vagueness in regards to multiculturalism and what it could bode for this community about division. I'm about unity, Madam Mayor, and I dissent primarily on the grounds that I do believe the intent was to direct to formation of employment. However, I understand that's what they're not seeing it that way. However, I think the community may. and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cristani. Councillor Saray, do you have a question?
I have a question, and it will be whether I dissent or not on the
Okay.
issue. So, just clarifying, so the original report is actually talking about drawing up a multicultural policy and then perhaps then leading into maybe employing somebody for a multicultural officer. Okay, so the fact that we've changed it totally now to that we will consider, as in writing to the Multicultural Commission to have co-locate, when the reality is that the motion, I think the report was saying, I think the intention of Councillor Smith's motion was actually to have somebody to deal with the multicultural communities to help them with council issues. My question is that correct? Is that what the report was about?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So, yes, the original intent of the report was to investigate how we could best resource the multicultural community of the City of Casey to access things within the City of Casey, which is not necessarily just council services. So what's been put forward is that our investigations have shown that we do have a reasonable number of resources in that area, and we need to look at how we can streamline the use of those, and if we can improve the effectiveness through having an internal multicultural policy and then an internal action plan, which would include potentially the investigation of Victorian Multicultural Commission as being part of having a space here at the City of Casey. So that can fit certainly into the recommendations that have been made.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and to the officers. I'm actually going to dissent on the fact that the motion now has turned into not what I think is the original intention of the motion, which was that we have somebody who would be able to help with council services and that type of thing. I don't think that having a multicultural commissioner here would actually help, in my opinion. So the reason why...
Councillor Saray, could I just add, I think this is complementary to what's on page 32. If you have a look at the next steps are down towards the bottom, just to trying to be helpful, steps 1 and 2, I think this actually adds to those 2 steps and is complementary to what's already being investigated. So what's being investigated is that we'll look for an internal multicultural, develop a multicultural policy and action plan, and that the Access and Inclusion Officer role be broadened to include an organisation-wide focus. So that kind of is already going on in the background. This is what's being suggested we add on.
Yeah, so I would actually still dissent on the fact that I don't know if I really want that type of influence in the council, since we're already having we are investigating a multicultural policy, extending the role of the access and inclusion person, then maybe considering a multicultural officer. I don't think we need this. I think if the role of the multicultural officer is to be knowledgeable in these things, that's the role of that. And I think that is what we need. And I don't think that we need to go into this getting involved with the Multicultural Commission, which I don't think is very impartial anyway. So I'm not really interested in getting them involved, who are appointed and funded by government, which I'm not really interested in. So I'm happy to dissent on that, on the reality, on the fact that it's not what the intention of the original motion was. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Saray. Councillors, are there any other questions? Councillor Aziz. We weren't going to report out, you know that, don't you? Councillor Aziz, what was that, sorry? You're reserving your right?
Yeah, I'm now exercising that.
You're going to exercise your right. Could I just go to Councillor Flannery first, because he's got a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question to the officers. I didn't expect this debate to go on so long about this, but my question will be, if we got liaison officers that for the multicultural sector, if we get the Commissioner in here to work side by side with Council, will it have an impact on Council doing their job, or will we work hand in hand?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can't imagine that it would impact on the way that we would do our work, because they would be their own independent people reporting back to their own people, and it would be more like a
Metro Access worker.
We would be the location for them to do whatever it is that they're doing as part of their normal job. And I'm assuming that that would mean that people who live in the city of Casey would have closer access to those people because they would physically be here. But in terms of them actually influencing our work, no.
Councillor Fleury, I'm just going to put you forward for that question, but if councillors are aware of what the Metro Access worker does, they're employed by DHHS, or certainly what used to be. They work side by side with council, don't interfere, but they complement everything they do. I see this as a very similar proposal. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So basically, if we needed advice from the Multicultural Commission, they're here. We don't have to run off to the city to get advice. We could just do it while we're here. We just go next door and ask them for the information, and they could do it. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jackson, and then Councillor Aziz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just a question to the officers, as I've read over the report again and heard people's concerns. And to the officers, does the report, and I'm struggling to find it, does the report in any way direct the CEO or direct council that are directing the CEO to hire any staff?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, the report does not do that. The report is a series of recommendations around a work that we will be doing.
Thank you.
Councillor Aziz.
So the report doesn't direct the CEO to hire any new staff, yeah? I thought that's why the CEO was absent tonight. He was too scared of that. No, anyway. Madam Mayor, this debate is about complexity in policy and actually raising policy to a new level. I'm fascinated by some of the comments that have been made by both councillors, Cristani and Saray, because if this was an issue other than multicultural policy, we wouldn't be having this debate. No. There is no doubt that there is a political overtone to the matter, and I respect and accept that. You asked an interesting question, Councillor Cristani, is, you know, what would happen if we were to direct the CEO to employ a Christmas commissioner? Well, there is no Christmas commission. There's only Christmas Island and Christmas trees. You know, it's not something that can be contemplated within the bounds of policy.
Councillor Cristani, your point of order?
It was Christmas officer, not a Christmas commissioner. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'll have in Councillor Cristani's favour. Councillor Aziz.
But even if we asked him to do that, you know, that may be a legitimate ask if there is a gaping policy need that we need to fill. And there is in this case. And with all due respect as well to you, Councillor Saray, and I respect your views very much on this, our like or dislike of the Commission is entirely irrelevant to the capabilities that the Commission can bring to bear in terms of our own.
Councillor Cristani, what's your point of order?
With all due respect...
Councillor Cristani, what is your point of order?
Error of fact.
Error of fact?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
All
please
due respect to Councillor Aziz, Councillor Saray never said that she has any like or dislike for the Commission. She merely stated... Am I right?
You are right. She did express that she wasn't interested in this. She didn't specify any...
So I dislike the Commission, didn't you, Susan?
I'm sorry, Councillor Aziz, I didn't hear that.
Well, my apologies.
Thank you, Councillor Cristani.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you,
it's great to see you speaking on behalf of Councillor Saray. It's absolutely wonderful. But I just want to say that at the end of the day, this adds an additional layer of capability to the City of Casey that we currently don't have. So we agreed during the briefing that we don't need a multicultural officer, and we're not getting one. But what we did say is for us to explore opportunities for us to access the next level of government as to how we can enhance outcomes for people from non-English speaking backgrounds and, you know, culturally and linguistically diverse communities. That's why the Commission was created, and it actually acts under its own statute. That means it has its own Act of Parliament. So it's actually a statutory body, it's no small thing. And to have a commissioner based here, I think, gives us massive volume to brag about a whole heap of things that we're doing, as well as political access that we currently don't have, or would have to work twice as hard to get. To me, this is a no-brainer. It's a natural step in the evolution of Victoria's largest city by population. And it's highly consistent with everything else we're doing. and it's taking us to the next level of policy making and delivering services for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Aziz, and thank you, councillors, for all your debate. It's really healthy. I really appreciate everyone's views. I'm going to go to Councillor Smith to wrap up. Sum up, please.
It was such a simple motion, I thought, but it's good to have some debate. I totally disagree with some of it, but that's democracy, and that's what we're about. If you read back to the executive summary, it talks about what the motion was that was adopted. It didn't actually direct that we are going to. It was about a report for consent and etc. So ideally, that's what I would. There's no doubt that's what I would have wanted. I would have wanted a report to come back saying yes, we agree, we want a multicultural officer. But I knew that I'd be pushing my luck to try and go down that path. So I'm happy with the report. I'm happy that something's going to come back by the end of the year. I'm confident, not confident, I'm hopeful that the report might come back and say, yeah, Smithy was right, we do need a multicultural officer, but it may not. But that doesn't matter, because we've had some debate and the officers are considering it. I thank Councillor Aziz, because I think that his changes to the point 2 have really made a big difference. The idea of a commissioner being based here won't impact on our officers in terms of being told what to do, but certainly it's going to be better if someone's here rather than taking a trip into the city, making a phone call, sending that email, because they're going to be here. And if we can get a commissioner and anyone else that might come with them, we will get support, we will get money, and it will be worth it to City of Casey. Councillor Cristani, I get it, I don't agree, but I get it that she has a real thing about multiculturalism, and to her credit, she brings it up every time. So, you know, she's pretty consistent with it. I would disagree on the basis, if you look at the numbers, you know, we're talking about 40% of our community who were not born here, and is it 40%? Yeah, 40.8% of people, English is a second language. We represent all these people, including that ethnic, multicultural background, and I believe we owe it to them to listen to them, and they are saying that they would like to have some extra help in terms of anything they require, whether it be funding, events, etc. So I look forward to the report and the debate that will ensue back in November this year, maybe.
Thank you, councillors. Councillors, we have dissent on this matter, so could I please ask for a show of hands in support of this recommendation for the report? So show of hands, please. And so all for? And against? Councillor Cristani has called for division, so could I please ask for all councillors supportive of this recommendation before us to stand? Thank you. And I call out Councillor Rowe, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Aziz, Councillor Smith, Councillor Stapleton, Councillor Jackson and Councillor Ablett. Thank you very much. For those who dissented, could I please ask you to stand? Thank you. Councillor Saray, Councillor Cristani, thank you very much. And that is carried. Councillors, wonderful debate. Thank you very much. We're now moving on to item 8.6, increased hours at Hampton Park and Cranbourne Youth Information Centres. Councillor Saray, if I could ask you to withdraw that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to move the recommendation in my name.
Yeah, the Cranbourne one is actually in the Mayfield Ward, Councillor Ablett, but you can, yeah.
It's his motion.
Oh, sorry. So you're raising it. I beg your pardon. Yes. So moved by Councillor Ablett. Oh, sorry, I missed that. And sorry, I'm confused. So okay, moved by Councillor Saray, seconded by Councillor Ablett. Now I've got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Will you please introduce?
Thank you. I'd like to start off by saying that I attended the Casey Youth Action Committee meeting last night, actually, and it was fantastic to see so many young people be articulate about their issue that they want to pursue this year, and I think it's fantastic that every year there's some really great talent coming through, and that's commend the youth staff here at Casey. So it's interesting, last night I felt that the young people were very clever in the way that they were articulating what they actually need, what they want, what they're passionate about. And I think this comes through with the consultation that was done with the young people of Casey about opening hours with the youth services in Cranbourne and Hampton Park. Obviously, with young people, it's a little bit difficult to get in touch with them, and that's because they go to school or they're at university. And so, having these opening hours is really important, so they can access the youth services in their time, in the afternoon and on the weekends, which is really important. Especially since we're a growth area, and obviously we're a growth corridor, and the isolation rate, I would assume, for young people is quite high, especially with the lack of transport. And I think that's why it's only Cranbourne and Hampton Park, and I think Narre Warren's been taken care of, but it's the public transport is the real killer here, so we're just hoping that this will help so young people can access their services and somewhere to go, even just to connect with other young people. And so that's all I need to say, Madam Mayor, but I hope that my fellow colleagues can support this. Thank you.
Beautifully said, Councillor Saray. And Councillor Ablett, I do apologise for getting that wrong. We had to discuss that earlier. Would you like to just... I'd love you to ask an "Are you aware?" Go ahead, please, Councillor Ablett. And congratulations on raising this. Well done.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd just like to endorse the words spoken by Councillor Saray and the great work she's doing with youth in the city of Casey, and say that I really hope the budget that's going to be considered will be adopted, because I had the pleasure of listening to Elka Whalen speak in Cranbourne in front of a lot of young people, and particularly young girls, and she's an Australian Olympian swimmer, won a silver medal, and she spoke about as she got taller and became different, how she handled the challenges of mental health and well-being, and that was quite extraordinary. She didn't just talk about it, she actually gave examples of what she did as a young girl who started to be, I guess from others who envy and jealousy is alive and well, and other girls particularly who tried to use put-downs and get to her because she was different, she was brilliant at swimming, and she really felt it, why am I different, why am I being treated this way? And to talk about all the things that she did to overcome the put-downs and harassment and bullying that she copped during that time. And she gave examples of what girls can do to turn things around. And then at the end of the session, there were girls who started talking about similar things that they were going through at the present time. And some of them were crying about, the stories of harassment of other schoolgirls, very similar to what she went through. And I thought, in all my years on council, I'd never seen anyone connect with young people as good as Elka Whalen. And I did say to her, I hope we can get you back, and with the great work that Councillor Saray is doing, I'm really pleased that this is happening, and I hope the hours won't just be about Elka Whalen. There'll be also other people with similar stories, adults that can help young people. Mental health, as you know, there are 2.5 times more suicides in Australia than the road toll, and if you multiply that by 8 for attempted suicides, if we had that many people on the roads being killed, we'd have a major problem that we had to address. And so it is a major problem. You know, the health and well-being really is the foundation of the city of Casey, and particularly young people. And I want to commend again Councillor Saray for getting right behind this. You'll find, anyone who goes will find Elka fantastic, but this is just a starting point, and we'll continue on if these hours are introduced. It'll give people who are disadvantaged, who have been put down, who have not a very good self-esteem, who may do self-harm, it may get them engaged, it may give them the skills and the practices to be as good as Elka Whalen and ride this through, not only with her swimming, but who she is today. Thank you.
Beautifully said, Councillor Ablett. Thank you very much. And congratulations, Councillor Saray. You do an amazing job with our youth, and I know that so many people that know you do turn to you for advice and guidance. So well done. You're doing a great job representing them here in Council. Councillors, are there any questions? Is there any dissent? Question from Councillor Smith.
Our council's aware the recommendation is talking about the budget in terms of increase of hours at Hampton Park and Cranbourne, so I thought we better not let that go. Particularly Hampton Park, and getting those extra hours on a Saturday are going to be fantastic. Obviously, we've still got to get it through the budget, but the bid will certainly get nice support. We have a very regular user of the Hampton Park Library sitting in the gallery now, and she's a great, Pamela's a great advocate for our libraries, not just Bunjil, but particularly Hampton Park. So she will know and be able to testify, especially that increased hours at the Hampton Park branch in particular. I'm not going to speak about the Hampton Park Youth Centre, but because it's co-located with the library, and the library is very busy on a Saturday, it will be so useful for our young people to have access to both services, the library and the youth centre. So I commend that part of the report. Like Councillor Saray, I went to the Youth Action Committee 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and yeah, I was very impressed by the proposals that they were considering. It was a fantastic visit, and I hope I'll get some more of them later on.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillors, is there any further questions? Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 8.8, the Bunyip Fire and Casey's response. Councillors, have you all had a chance to read the late report? Fantastic. So that's moved by myself and seconded by my Deputy Mayor, Councillor Crestani. Councillors, I sat with the CEO yesterday, and after having a really good talk with Councillor Smith in relation to our response to the fires that we've experienced or witnessed in our neighbouring municipality, Cardinia. And Councillor Smith was willing to run a charity event that would have encompassed a lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of money and a lot of people. And I sat with the CEO, and he suggested that we keep it simple, do some... Oh, sorry, I shouldn't be... I've moved that already. I've got to make some changes. Sorry, but just to fill you in on the purpose of this report was to simplify things, to contribute the money that might have gone into preparing an event or part thereof, and to donate it directly to the Casey Cardinia Foundation Relief Fund, which is the main funds holder for donations for the Cardinia Shire. And as a consequence, we have before us a recommendation that I would like to make a couple of changes to. But just to let you know, we're recommending to donate $20,000 out of the mid-year budget review to be made by Council to the Bunyip Fire Emergency Relief Fund. It would be the Casey Cardinia. Oh yes, managed by the... Yes, it's actually just called the Casey Cardinia Foundation Relief Fund. I think we just need to make sure we get that right. And it's coming out of the midterm budget.
To consider at the mid-year budget? Or are we doing it?
I think we're doing it.
Okay.
Yep. The decision I'm asking you tonight, councillors, to do is to accept that we're going to commit this out of the midterm budget. The thing is, we can't talk about 20,000 now and not deliver later. I think that would be... And it does save us committing to an event where probably would spend a similar amount. So, councillors, thank you very much, Councillor Saray. We're just going to change that from the Bunyip Fire Emergency Relief Fund because it's actually called the Casey Cardinia Foundation Relief Fund. So, Councillor, to the Bunyip Fire Emergency made by... that a $20,000 donation from the mid-year budget review be made by Council to the Casey Cardinia Foundation Relief Fund to aid the Bunyip Fire devastation. Or... if you feel comfortable with that, fellow councillors. So just getting... do I have leave of council for those changes? Fantastic. Councillors, I don't need to introduce it any further. I spoke about our sentiments towards our neighbouring council Cardinia and the devastation that they've experienced, also the goodwill from council officers and us here on council towards them, and anything we can do to help them. This $20,000 will go a long way. They haven't decided yet how they're going to spend it, but I know that they will find plenty to spend that on. So, councillors, I just put this to you and seek your support. Oh, Councillor Cristani. Question?
Madam Mayor, it's an AUA, and I meant to mention it's suspension, and that is on our community safety committee. Our local CFA does present at every committee, and they have faithfully done so. And I just want to highlight that because they have updated us on their preparations, and I know they've been well prepared for something like this. So I do want to highlight that they have committed to interact with council and other emergency service at our community safety committee, and I'm very grateful for their input. By collaboration, we can prepare for items like situations such as this, and just noting that they do put an input directly into Casey. Thank you.
And it's worth also, thank you, Councillor Cristani. Councillor Cristani, Councillor Serene, Councillor Gillich are part of the Casey Safety Committee as well, so doing an enormously good job there too. Councillor Aziz, you have a question?
Yes, it's an are you aware, the Mayor, but I think it needs to be said. It is a very sensitive situation, and I understand that there are some fires that continue to burn, and some people that continue to put their lives at the front line to save others. But I think it has to be said, Madam Mayor, that I want to record my appreciation, and I'm sure the rest of Council shares with me that sentiment, for the leadership that you have exercised in this matter. I've seen all the emails over the weekend, and I've seen the way that you've worked with both the firefighting authorities, but as well as with our neighbouring council to provide as much relief from our council as possible. And tonight is just another great initiative for us to consolidate that. So I think it ought to be said that a lot of your weekend was spent thinking about those, confronting the fires and helping those who are fighting them. And it showed tremendous leadership, and I could not have been more proud, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you, Councillor Aziz. That's so, and thank you, Councillor Cristani. I thank you all so much, but I think we're all like-minded. I just am so proud to be a part of this council, and the kindness and compassion that we show to others is something that I think is the hallmark of who we are. And of course, all the other things that encompass us and make us a hardworking and strong council. So very proud to be a fellow councillor and very proud to be your mayor. So thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Is there any other comments or dissent? That being the case, that is carried, and I thank you. Thank you so much. I think that's going to go a long way to helping people who need it the most in Cardinia. Councillors, we're moving on now to a little bit emotional there. Thank you. Oh, thank you. We're moving on to petitions or consideration of reports. Is there a mover or a seconder to receive and note the record of assembly of councillors as listed before us? So moved by Councillor Cristani, seconded by Councillor Saray. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. Petitions. Are there any petitions or joint letters that councillors wish to present? And can you please confirm that the petition contains 5 or more signatories? And then please proceed with your motion. Councillor Cristani, you have 2 petitions, I believe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I rise to present the first petition tonight and acknowledge that our dear resident Shannon Tobin Underwood has been very patient waiting the whole meeting. So I just want to acknowledge Shannon, if you don't mind standing up for a brief moment. Thank you very much, Shannon, you may sit down if you like. Shannon has done some amazing work. Actually, I probably have to move it first?
Yes, I need you to move it, but I would like to know how many signatories you've got.
There was 110 actually counted, 111 we thought, but I couldn't read one of them, so I just have to put 110 signatories.
And so you're going to move that wording, you're going to move that?
Yes,
and it's going to be seconded by Councillor Saray.
Thank you.
Okay, please introduce, if you would, Councillor.
Yes, I'll try to be brief because you have been waiting for some time, but I just want to highlight Shannon's work on this item, and that's quite a feat to not only circulate a petition, to gather 110 signatures from not only the local area, where 38 of the signatures from Listerfield South, where we're dealing with an issue of request for speed limit reduction to protect the wildlife and also reduce the speed of the cars for their own safety as well. So that's what that encompasses the petition, but to be able to circulate it and gather that many is just a real credit to you. You've got a long, bright future, young lady, and you may replace us all. But I just want to highlight that you also, sorry, I should direct it to you, Madam Mayor,
no.
But so if we just go back to the other one. So the 110 signatures were gathered in relation to this petition, but also you ran a stall where it's over $1,000, and that was donated to one of the kangaroo rescuers in the area at Listfield South who are currently caring for 6 joeys who have been orphaned. And I believe it was last year we also highlighted a similar case where a young fellow had raised money to and made some craft project to donate. This is really a credit to yourself, Shannon, for being able to raise that money. It shows that you've got a dual care here, and we're looking at protecting the wildlife, which is backing on to great forests, of course, and reserves along Churchill Park Road in Listfield South. In fact, a major forested area is where that runs along, and so, but also to look at reducing the speed limit for drivers, so down from 60 to 50, which is very reasonable, and I believe that this is something that could be reasonably achieved. So I do raise this with a great hope and feasibility that this could occur. So I just want to thank you again for bringing this to our attention, Shannon. And keep up the good work, and please keep working at your, this was actually a Year 7 project, and but that was, I mean, you certainly brought it into the community and you've brought it into council for this attention. So, Madam Mayor, if my colleagues can support this, I'll be grateful, and we will bring this back in May, and so keep an eye on that for the outcome of this investigation into this petition. So thank you very much. So I table this petition, Madam Mayor, and for receipt. Thank you.
Councillor Cristani, thank you very much. Councillor Ablett.
Just a question?
Yeah, of course.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I really support this. I was just wondering, maybe one of the officers or someone might be able to tell, is this one of our roads or is it a Vic Roads?
Either way, Vic Roads have got to approve it.
Either way, Vic Roads have got to approve it. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, sorry, officer.
Yeah, Mayor and officer.
Sorry, I'm sorry,
no, that's all I wanted to know. That's fine.
So, councillors, we're going to put this to the vote, but after we have voted, could I just ask that we just get a lovely photo with Shannon and her beautiful mum. Very proud of you, Shannon. Congratulations on doing this. These are the great changes have happened because of people like yourself, and your mother must be very proud of you. So, if on that basis, councillors, I probably roped you into a corner. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. Shannon, would you like to come up with your mum and we'll get a lovely photo in front of the flags?
End the meeting first? Yeah. No, do you want to end the meeting first? Is that it? Oh, is there another? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Is everybody in it? No, I can't.
I didn't realise we were all in.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Shannon. Marie. Councillor Cristani has another petition to move. At your leisure, Councillor Cristani.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I appreciate you giving me the floor again, which yes, I rise to address another petition was presented to me this week in relation to gum tree species on Hillside Court, Panorama Court and Parkview Terrace in Listerfield South. I'll just, if my fellow colleagues would like a moment to read, I can read it out for the purposes of the live stream. The petition notes...
Yes, that would be fine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That I table this petition of 14 signatories. The petition notes that Council's own tree policy suggests... Sorry, this is the words on the petition. Petition notes that Council's own tree policy suggests to, quote, selecting, planting and maintaining trees appropriate to maximise their benefits and livability for residents, end quote. And in a standard residential nature strip, a small tree species may be planted, end quote. The petition requests a replacement and the petition of 14 signatories be accepted, and noting that 5 other residents who also wrote strongly agree, just didn't sign, but they made it 19 in total. The Council resolved to refer to Council officer to visit on site to assess the potential removal and replacement, and the head petitioner, Mr Peter Wardley, which I'm very grateful for, who presented the petition to me, be updated and notified of the outcome. Mr Wardley has been fantastic at oh, sorry, thank you. I'd like to move that, Madam
Moved by
Mayor.
Councillor Cristani and seconded by Councillor Ablett. Please introduce. Thank you.
Mr Wardley has been concerned about these trees for some time. And in fact, I believe there's some photos that I sent through earlier in the late last week. Yes, so this is just one. They're concerned about, this is the type of outcomes from the trees, and this is no isolated issue. This is a council-wide issue. So this is one of the major ones on his nature strip, which, as we know, gum trees are very problematic, and I know we keep raising this, but it is the #1 reason that I get contacted. It is the top of the list, and that is nature strip trees, and often trees in... This is actually this is running off, this is their ideal. They would love to have oak trees or another type of trees that are only, what's the word, not perennial, but where they... Thank you. Deciduous trees, which only drop once a year, instead of the gum trees. Now, we love native trees, just appropriately in reserves, but we are hearing more and more that residents do want deciduous trees. Now, this is back on their street again, and this is the tree line, and it looks lovely, but you look closer and you can see them sapping the moisture out of everything. And we're already dry, and it is already raising multiple issues. They drop a lot of leaves and risk of branches, and it's an issue that seems to run Casey-wide, of course. But this is important to the residents of Hillside Court, Listerfield South, and he has gathered support from the surrounding streets and courts as well. And that's the only ones that are on the petition are in this area. So Mr Wardley said some of people are away, but everyone he asked said they strongly agree that these should be replaced. Now, Mr Wardley said he would pay for his own replacement. So that is something I hear time and time again. It's very expensive to replace trees. As we know, to remove a tree, you're talking at least $1,000, if not more, of something of that nature. And that is why it's still, to this day, prohibitive to remove problem trees. That's one reason. There's many reasons why we can't just wholesale remove many trees. But it is something to take on board, that perhaps in the future we can carve out a portion in our tree policy to allow for residents to remove trees where they deem problematic, and we widen the boundaries as just what that means. Because many of us, in fact, I think all councillors have raised these trees from time and time again, and if we keep getting crunched from different policies and different levels of government, that somehow we have to increase canopy, I'm concerned that that's not addressing the core reason that we are putting trees over humans, and we cannot continue to do that, Madam Mayor. Something I'm very passionate about, because we cannot put human life as a second rate. We have many trees, and we are very responsible. In fact, we have tree planting programs, so we've got plenty of carbon-eating trees out there. But I just believe we need to look at this closer and we need to address our policy. I won't deal with it tonight. There is an issue that I wanted to add on here, but I think the sensitive nature that we're dealing with at our joining council, I just won't raise it tonight. But I do want to highlight that in future I will be raising this again. And of course, I'm not pretending to be the first one to raise this. I know Councillor Surrey has raised it, Councillor Ablett. I believe many of us have raised it here, Councillor Flannery. And I know that Councillor Rowe had mentioned it before too in pre-council, so I acknowledge you for your bringing that up too. We can't let this go, and we can't just take it lying down that whatever's we're fed from other levels of government, that somehow we have to accept that and not plead on behalf of our residents for the very important issue that these trees have consistently put our residents at risk on so many levels, and we have to plead their case. If we have to keep pushing until we achieve what we want. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry to continue, but thank you for giving me leverage on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cristani. I agree. Trees are important, but they have to be appropriate. Councillor Jackson, do you have a question or dissent?
And are you aware, with your indulgence, Madam Mayor, and thank Councillor Cristani for this issue, and I know it's an issue for all councillors across the municipality, and I was going to call a point of order, but I thought I'd better not. And just in terms of Councillor Cristani, I think I want to make it pretty clear that I'm not sure any of the City of Casey's current policies put human life ahead of trees, and I just want to make that point very, very clear, that our policies do reflect that risk as well.
Madam Mayor, may I just respond to that?
Yep, thank you very much, Councillor Jackson. I support what you had to say. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I think that's really important what Councillor Jackson raised, because I want to really define that our officers work extremely hard and they are very sympathetic. I'm more talking about the crunch on perhaps outside of council's borders that have formed our policy and perhaps have limited us.
I think you did say different levels of government.
So I just want to say I do, and I thank you, Councillor Jackson, because I don't want officers to feel like they've done enough, and they have. In fact, they have gone above and beyond, and I'm grateful for their work. And it's no easy task dealing with trees, and I really hand it to some of the managers that have dealt with this for years and years on, and plus their team. So I just want to thank them, because it is a whole amount of there's a huge amount of body of work that they do dealing with trees. It's just trying to coexist. So that's all.
And it's a difficult balance, isn't it, or a delicate balance?
Correct.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cristani. Councillor Ablett.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I know I said a few words about trees before, and our policy is in the throes of changing. However, in talking about danger of trees, there always is a risk factor, and that is that our arborists always say a tree is safe. A tree is healthy, but no arborist I've ever met yet will say a tree is safe. And so there is an element of risk, and as we know, some gums, it doesn't have to be a windy day for a limb to come down. So whilst we do the best we possibly can to keep people safe, with what has been planted in the past, as just brought out before by Councillor Cristani, there is a risk factor, being in the wrong spot at the wrong time, and we live with that. And as I said before in another issue, or similar issue, moving forward with trees, I think we have to do a bit more with all the reasons Councillor Cristani was talking about in regard to gum trees and making our residents a lot more happy, because it is a Casey-wide thing. But just to go back to the point, of course we don't put people's lives at risk, but there is always a risk that a healthy tree, or deemed to be healthy, can drop a limb at the drop of a hat, and just don't want to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Thank you.
No, I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Ablett. Are there any more questions, or is there any dissent? That being the case, that is carried. Thank you, Councillor Cristani. We're moving on. Any other petitions before we move on? No? No. No, there are no notices of motion for this evening, and there are no reports by council delegates, but we're moving on to items of urgent business. Are there any items of urgence? I have one item to raise, and for the benefit of those that are watching online. Oh, sorry, it's urgent because of timing. It's to do with a particular educational facility that has had to close, and timing is of the essence. So I'm moving that item of urgent business, and is seconded by Councillor Rowe. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. I'd like to submit the following item of urgent business and I'll just read this out. I'm just having a quick look at the wording before I move it. I think where it says relevant state MPs, could we put relevant state Casey MPs? Just put Casey MPs. Don't want to. I need to put state in there. Yes, Casey state MPs. Beautiful. I just didn't want to assume that they would be imposed on if they're not able to attend. That's the only other thing. Thank you. Okay. Just to read that out. Sorry. Yep. In light of the current circumstances surrounding Inside Education Centre for the Blind and Vision Impaired having to close its school facility doors, Council resolve to request a meeting with the State Education Minister, the Honourable James Merlino MP, inviting relevant Casey state MPs and to join a council delegation. Sorry about this. MPs to join a council delegation of the Mayor, Edrington Ward councillors, Deputy Mayor Councillor Tim Jackson and Councillor Susan Saray, and make that a new paragraph, if you wouldn't mind. A report come back to council confirming response to the meeting request, and again, once the meeting has been conducted, outlining a way forward. So that's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Saray. Thank you very much, Councillor Saray. Councillors, I don't really need to speak to this too much, other than to mention that this was on the front page of the Star News this week, or last week actually, and a very, very important issue around Insight for the Blind and Vision Impaired Education Facility. This is on the site of Federation University, and it's been there for quite a number of years. It was single-handedly established by a wonderful man by the name of Alan Lackman, who's coming to brief us next week. He was absolutely dogged about establishing a school for the blind and vision impaired. That one existed when he left Australia. He'd spent some time overseas. His wife gave birth to a beautiful daughter who is vision impaired, and came back to Victoria to find out there was absolutely no school for the blind and vision impaired. And what he noticed was that whilst some people who had children who were blind and vision impaired did attend schools, they weren't actually, there was so much disadvantage in terms of them falling between the gaps. Not all of them were going to onto employment, and not all of them developed the life skills that they desperately needed in order to live a full and productive life. So Alan will provide all that information next week, but in the meantime, I'd love to get a request in so that we can go and meet with the Minister, appeal to him to see how we can get the facility back opened. What I would say is that Alan Lackman is still running his mobile education centres. They've got vans that go out to different schools. They're like a satellite education centre, and they help not only the children who are blind and vision impaired at state schools, they actually assist the teachers in how to better teach them moving forward, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful compliment to the facility that he has established. There's no way we would like to stand by and see this facility go to waste and the opportunity missed to provide a very meaningful education that leads to pathways to jobs and very independent lives. So, councillors, I will be putting that to you for consideration after I've called on Councillor Saray to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just in our pre-meeting, we talked about perhaps meeting on the parliamentary sitting week. So I don't know if we should add that in, because I'm just looking at the dates and there aren't any in April because of the school holidays. So we'd have to wait till May. If it's a sensitive time, then we'd have to do it.
Minister Merlino is in Monbulk, which is not too far away.
Okay.
So we could always, I think, I take your point. I think that's a great suggestion, but would you be in agreement to head up to his office in
I just thought if we
Monbulk
wanted relevant Casey MPs to attend, then we can all meet them at the same place at Parliament House, if that was...
Which is always, that's a fair point.
So
could the officers take that on notice?
Okay, cool.
We can include it if you like, Councillor Saray.
It's just a suggestion.
Great suggestion. Great suggestion. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yes, Councillor Flannery.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just an awareness. I don't believe that Insight is connected with Vision Victoria or the Institute for the Blind. I think they're a separate organisation, so they really don't get any support from that organisation. So, you know, as I said, we've been down there and met with them, and I think they're a great organisation. It's just a shame that, you know, they're thinking about closing their doors, and the state government, you know, should consider financing it, because I know that they drove out to Broadmeadows to pick up one boy to bring him down here just to give him an education and give him the confidence to look forward to getting into the workforce rather than just sit at home in a corner. And you know, I think that we all should be congratulating Alan for the fine work that he does. I've met his daughter as well, and the man is very passionate, but I'm pretty sure that what I heard was they're not supported by Vision Australia, so people have got to realise that they're not connected.
And that's a really, really important point that you raised, Councillor Flannery. There is no support. The absolute mammoth effort by Alan Lackman and supporters has been nothing short of extraordinary. And what you described about, they had volunteer bus drivers that were driving right the way over to the other side of town to ensure that everybody got an opportunity to attend this facility. We even put a footpath from Berwick Station right through to the centre, so that people that were visually impaired could catch a train long term and then just walk straight from the train to the centre. Yes, it would just be the greatest tragedy, and for the sake of Alan Lackman, who I've known for so many years, and his beautiful daughter Francesca, I think it's really important that we do get behind this and rally behind it, and see if we can get a good result for the benefit of people with that are blind and vision impaired, children. But also for the greater good of education. So, councillors, I put this forward for your consideration, and I ask, is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried, and I thank you very, very much for supporting it. Are there any other items of urgent business? No? Then I'm going to declare this meeting closed. Thank you very much for a fantastic meeting. I've loved the debate, and that's what council's all about. And please, we'll go into closed council after a 5-minute. No, close, nothing more. So thank you very much for everyone who attended the meeting, and we'll see you next council meeting.